Hour of news coming your way. President Trump will be out soon for a news conference live from the White House. And while we wait for that to start, the countdown to Election Day is on. And you know what that means. The media is ramping up their anti-Trump rhetoric. While President Trump was delivering historic Mideast peace deals between Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain, members of the press were quick to downplay it at every turn. Take a look.
As Andrea Mitchell reports, a broader Middle East peace is still an elusive goal.
But today's agreements open the doors for trade, travel, and tourism. But it is not Middle East peace. Left out, the Palestinians.
But it's more of a business deal than a peace accord. The three countries are not engaged in armed conflict.
Comprehensive peace across the entire region.
President Trump proclaiming this a peace agreement, but the countries were not at war. And left out of the deal, the Palestinians, who call the agreement a betrayal.
And, of course, CNN didn't care at all about the deal and instead focused on this.
Today's ceremony showcased the president's continued defiance of the very coronavirus guidelines his White House recommends.
There were hundreds of people gathered with little in the way of social distancing.
Hundreds of guests were packed on the South Lawn with little social distancing and optional masks.
While all that is happening, the media and the Democrats have also been hyping that Trump won't leave office if he loses. But what happens if he wins? How could they accept the results with months of hair-on-fire reactions like this?
If he loses Trump, he won't go. I've been saying that since before he got elected.
You have so many rank-and-file military personnel saying, whoa, we're not a military state. This is not who we are. I promise you, I'm absolutely convinced they will escort him from the White House.
There is a process. It has nothing to do with that the certain occupant of the White House doesn't feel like moving and has to be fumigated out of there.
All right. Juan, I want to cite a headline from the Babylon Bee. Before you stop me, I know it's a satirical publication, but I think it really nails what's going on here. Here's the headline. This is kind of making fun of CNN. Media criticizes Trump for ignoring social distancing guidelines while saving baby from oncoming train. Do you see the kind of snark we're talking about with CNN? We're announcing this big peace deal, and all these heavy hitters that probably get tested daily or weekly are gathered around the White House to make peace. Don't you see that's really not the story?
Well, okay, but I mean, I got to help you with your reading selections there, Jesse. I want to do a little show and tell.
Okay.
Because to me, here's what my experience was this morning as I woke up and went to the doorstep, looking rather shabby. Here's what I saw. Here's the Wall Street Journal this morning. And the Wall Street Journal's top story about the Israeli deal. Oh, my gosh. And then I picked up the Washington Post, Jesse, and look, it's the top story. It's a big headline, Jesse. Oh, my gosh. But, you know, Jesse, I even read the New York Times. And look, Jesse, oh, my God, the New York Times, their top story.
I'm not saying they ignored it. I'm just saying they spun it negative. Didn't you hear the montage at the top?
No, I'm saying... Yes, but I'm telling you, Jesse, they all paid attention to this and to what it means to the Middle East. It seems to me that the media didn't downplay this. It seems to me that, I forget the name of your source, but it seems to me like the conservative echo chamber is playing up and nitpicking, you know, anything that talked about social distance and the need for it and mask wearing in the age of coronavirus. I think that's what's going on. It's not that anybody's ignoring the deal that was made by the president.
Okay, well, I didn't say ignoring. I said they were spinning it negatively. Greg, you've been talking a lot about the left wing preparing for violence, whatever happens after the election, and you were actually right. I hate to admit it because I found an article in the Daily Beast that says the left is preparing for violence. They say there's training for civil disobedience and mass public unrest, training you how to occupy stuff and shut things down. And it's a conglomeration of a bunch of left-wing groups. So I think we have to prepare for the worst.
Believe me, I am preparing for the worst because I've seen the worst, and it's going to get worse, if that's even possible. And the funny thing is, when you think about this peace deal and the riots, when there were riots, they were calling them mostly peaceful. Then you see a breakthrough in peace, and they don't call it peace. They don't even call it mostly peaceful. So the media is gaslighting the United States with everything, including literal gaslighting. Remember when if you raised the question that maybe some of the wildfires in Oregon were started by people, the media mocked you. They said, no, 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 no. That's just a far-right conspiracy that, lurks in the Reddit world, And then, of course, there are at least 2 arrests now of arsonists who were setting fires in Oregon. But you were told that what you see with your own eyes doesn't exist. But the reason why the media is denying this as a peace deal, it's cognitive dissonance, right? This is observably, factually a great thing. You got to admit. It's a great thing. But they can't do it, so they're crumbling into this cognitive dissonance denial because the Orange Godzilla Hitler isn't really Orange Godzilla Hitler after all, or he's the worst Orange Godzilla Hitler ever created. They spent 4 years trying to brainwash the public into thinking this man is evil. They wanted all of us to set our hair on fire, so they deserve to feel terrible. They deserve to have their hair on fire. They have been wrong on so many things that if I listed them, we'd be here till 2024 when Trump begins his 3rd term.
Hey, don't scare the left too much. They might go nuts. Katie, one of the criticisms now is that, this isn't really a peace deal because these 3 countries weren't at war with each other. That misses the entire point. That now there's a Sunni-Israeli alliance against the Iranians, which have been responsible for causing a lot of the violence in the Middle East, and that's a good thing.
The argument that this is not a peace deal is completely detached from reality of the way that every Arab country in the Middle East, maybe minus Egypt, because they were early on in the 1980s with the peace agreement with normalization, would condemn everything that Israel did. The main issue that was portrayed in the media and in the Arab world was the Palestinian-Israeli issue. That is no longer the case. What this deal does for America is it allows the United States to be less involved in the Middle East. It means more intelligence sharing between those countries on terrorism, so there will be less radicalization and terrorism, and it brings new allies to the table in the fight against Iran. And when the media refuses to just report what happened here and call it what it is, which is a peace agreement, they're doing it for a couple of reasons. The first is that they've been wrong. All of the articles at the beginning of the administration were that Jared Kushner could not broker a deal on Middle Eastern peace because he had no diplomatic experience on the issue. He came in, went about it in a different way through business and intelligence sharing and other offers on the table and got it done. And there are going to be more. And what that does to people who have been focused on the Israeli-Palestinian issues for decades in D.C. is it embarrasses them and proves that the issue is no longer about the Palestinian-Israeli issue, but bigger issues in the Middle East. And by the way, when the media focuses on the Palestinians not being at the table, do you know what the Palestinian terrorists were doing yesterday while this was being signed at the White House? They're launching rockets from Gaza into Israel, which is why they weren't at the table for this deal.
Yeah, Dana, take a swing at the coverage of the peace deal or the conspiracy theory about Trump refusing to leave the White House.
I think we've covered the peace deal pretty well. I think what I would say for the Democrats is I would be looking at all of these battleground states and spending a lot more time figuring out how Joe Biden can win in those states rather than planning what to do if he loses. It seems to me that would be better spent at this point as you see these races tightening up.
Yeah, they could probably do better organizing voters and organizing protesters.